All right, in this video, I want to talk about three things that actually kind of come together. I thought they were three separate subjects, so I got three different pictures I want to use here. But they actually all come together. I thought I was going to do three different videos, but I don't think that's necessary. And it actually starts here with how a lot of atheists think that there's no free will. And that's because they don't have a actual solid foundation, an understanding of the human nature. And Christians that should have this understanding don't have it. So it's kind of just left out there where they're just figure out things on their own because the schools teach children that we're just animals. And that's where we come from. So when you're taught that and you come to realize that your soul, that is your consciousness, your character, your personality, your thoughts, your feelings, who you are, you realize you're self-aware, and then your physical body has these desires and urges and things that you cannot completely control. And then you're taught that you're an animal, so you just think, well, I don't have free will. My animal nature just kind of takes over, and I just got to do with it what it wants because I can't bring it under submission to me. Because the physical body, the flesh, will not submit completely to you, and it sure as hell will not submit to God. That's what we're taught in the scriptures, is that our flesh is corrupted. And that's why we desire to go against God and fight against God and to do whatever it is that pleases our flesh, even though it ends up enslaving us. Where a lot of times our flesh will get us into things that actually are detrimental to us. We can think of some simple things like smoking cigarettes, drinking too much, uh, pornography, sex addictions, uh, drugs like marijuana, cocaine, meth, heroin, and other such things. And a lot of these things will end up getting a grip on you and an addiction to you. And some of these things are more hardcore than others, and they have a more of a devastating effect on your mind and your body, and are obviously very destructive because you see the destruction happen to you very fast. Well, some of these other things, the destruction doesn't happen to you so fast, so they're more socially acceptable because it takes a while before it actually gets to you. But each one of these things, people have realized, hey, I don't want to do it, I want to stop, but they end up doing it. Oh, this is the last time, this is the last one, back at it, right? And if you're taught that you're an animal from childhood, you're just going to think, well, I don't have free will because I don't want to do these things, but here I am doing them. And I fight against it, and then I end up just talking myself into it and take pleasure in this thing that I feel guilty about afterwards, or I hate about myself afterwards. And a lot of times it's not with something like this that we ingest. Sometimes it's something within us. There's times where we actually like judging other people and condemning them and hating them. We'll be jealous of them and envious of them, and we actually enjoy it, even though we know it's wrong and that we shouldn't be doing that, that it actually is an awful feeling, but we get hooked into it. There's times where it's lustful feelings. You're thinking about lustful things about people, and your body enjoys it. So you do it, and then afterwards you're like, what are you doing? Right? You gotta snap yourself out of it. And there's times where it's uh, feelings of feeling important and noticed, so you do things to get attention, and you get addicted to having attention and being praised and put on a pedestal for even if it's just a moment because it feels good, right? You can get addicted to these different things, and it's as if it takes control of us. So without this solid foundation of really understanding the human nature and the corrupted, sinful nature of man, they just think that that's just how we are and we don't have a choice in the matter. And since Christians aren't really being taught this, they don't understand it either. Where Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 7 about how there's nothing good in the flesh, but it's not him that ends up really doing these things. It's the sin that's in the flesh, because the flesh cannot be subject to God or his law, so it naturally does the things that you don't want to do and keeps you from doing the things that you do want to do, because it's sinful and it's selfish and pleasure seeking. And you notice that's like the morality of atheists, is that, well, whatever is good for the most, it's whatever is pleasurable and helpful for the most people. So it's not so much about really right and wrong as much as it is about just pleasing the flesh. And yeah, so when we come to this next point here, I was bringing up homophobia and transphobia, where Christians are not taught about the flesh. They're almost as ignorant about it as the atheist. So that when there's people who are homosexual, transgender, they don't understand that the flesh is corrupt, and they want to condemn these people, and they hate them and telling them to stop doing what they're doing. But it's basically like going out there and telling people to stop smoking, to stop drinking coffee, to stop doing all these things that we naturally want to do, right? But they treat it a lot more harshly than they do these other sins that they're more comfortable with, more socially acceptable, more relatable to them. But since they're not as relatable to them, they're a lot harsher on this. And there's some Christians who they see how the church acts towards homosexuals and transgender people, that they end up having family, friends that are homosexual, transgender, and they love them. No doubt, right? Why wouldn't they? And they don't like that the church is treating them the way that they're treating them. So they end up turning on the church. And it's all because of a complete misunderstanding, where you can have uh, one child who they struggle with anger, and that's more socially acceptable, more understandable. Not that it's acceptable, but you don't have people putting up signs talking about stop with your anger and you're losing your temper or you're going to hell, and condemning these people for having a temper and say, oh, that's just kind of natural. It's how the body is, right? The sinful nature, even, right? But when it comes to somebody being a homosexual or transgender, they don't look at it the same way. Where it's like, yeah, their sinful flesh has gotten them into this, where that's their kink, that's their kryptonite, that's their fix. Where you might be addicted to bursts of anger, you might be uh, addicted to lustful thoughts, envying, attention seeking, praise, and that's more socially acceptable. And their sin, their addiction, is attraction to the same sex or wanting to be the other sex. And that is weird and awkward to a lot of people, so they condemn it as if it's some kind of poisonous snake or spider crept in and they're trying to stomp on it, right? But it's just the same thing we're all dealing with. You need to look at it as everybody's dealing with the corrupt flesh, and you need to be preaching to everybody about how the flesh is sinful and it's corrupted. And just because you feel a certain way or you take pleasure in certain things doesn't mean it's right. And it shouldn't be enabled. Like, I'm not here supporting homosexuality and transgenderism and supporting not going to anger management and supporting alcoholism. I'm not supporting going and just supporting all your natural desires. I'm pointing out that it's the flesh that we need to be saved from. That's what we need to be saved from. And going out here and bashing the people over the head about they need to change what they're doing is telling them to do an impossible thing. Like trying to tell these people to uh, turn themselves into unicorns or something. It's like they can't do that. So you're just yelling at them about something that's a waste of time. And it's kind of got me thinking because I was actually kind of talking to God about things about there's probably so much more I could be doing for you. I'd be preaching more and getting the gospel out to people and knocking door to door, even though people are not very receptive to it. And then the thoughts come to me about, well, how did you end up converting? Did people come to you knocking at your door? Who came to you? It's like, well, nobody. I was like, right, I drew you to me. And when I gave you a piece of truth, you accepted it. And then you just kept coming as I drew you. I'm doing this to everybody. They're just not following. You going to them and beating them over the head with it isn't going to change anything. It's not going to win them over. When there's opportunities, when somebody is receptive to the truth, talk to them about it. But you just don't go to everybody. That's a complete waste of time. And I was thinking about it. I was like, okay. And then I ended up talking to somebody who just got in contact with me on one of these social platforms and was messaging me, and I was talking to him. And I was a little apprehensive about talking because, strangers, especially online. But, just keeping things simple, not, giving out too much information or getting too personal or nothing, just normal talking at the bus stop or something, right? Just passing the time. And I was thinking, okay, maybe this person's genuine. They just want to talk and being friendly. But then this person mentioned something about, hey, you've read in the Bible about when the Holy Spirit came on the people, they spoke in tongues. And I was like, oh, okay. You're like a charismatic, and you're going to tell me that I'm not really saved because I don't speak in tongues or something like that. I was like, okay, there's always something. And then the thoughts come to me. Well, how did that make you feel? Or that person was just trying to bring you into what they believe? I was like, I didn't like it. They weren't genuine. They weren't being real. They were just pretending to be friendly so that they could get their ideas to me, like a politician. They don't really care. They just want your vote. He's like that. Okay, so that would be the same thing if you were going door to door. You were going to everybody, just giving the gospel to them. You're not really sitting there caring about them and having a relationship with them. You're just pushing the gospel on them. And that's just going to push them away because they know you really don't give a shit. You just want to win somebody over and get another vote. And once you've got that vote, it's a whatever. So just worry about being genuine and actually caring about people and not giving them the gospel unless the opportunity comes up and they're open to it. Your agenda should just be building relationships with people, being friends, and uh, if then it leads to it where it comes to the gospel, give them the gospel. If they see it in your life because that's what you end up just talking about, like me doing videos like this, it's kind of difficult not to end up revealing my point of view to somebody. But I don't push it on people. I got friends and family that I don't believe are saved, but I don't push it on them because I know it would push them away. Not necessarily from me, but it might push them away from God. Because it's like I said, it's like, do you really care about me, or you just want to get another person, like another gem in the crown, another reward? You're just trying to get another vote here. And it's like, yeah, I get it, and I don't want to do that. And ultimately, it's God that's going to lead you. So when you're dealing with people like I was talking about here, homosexuals and people who are transgender, just love them, be a friend to them. You don't have to support what they're doing and go do their things that they do with them, but you also don't have to stone them, right? You just it's just like your neighbor. Okay, yeah, my neighbor's weird. Okay, they think you're weird too. All right, whatever. Well, they do what they're doing as long as they're not pushing it on you and things getting violent or messing with children. Then to each their own. And if there's an opportunity, you plant the seeds of the gospel. You pray for them that God draws them and softens their hearts and minds and opens their eyes and ears to the truth. Because it's ultimately God that's going to be doing all these things. And it's through my personal experience, what I've experienced with myself and with actually trying to reach people. You know, a lot of the things or topics and discussions and the people that I've been talking to try to reach them has actually been more for me now that I'm thinking about it, because I learned a lot about human nature. I learned about myself. I learned about others. I learned about how it's not about me and how well I can phrase an argument and how logical and reasonable it is. Using the common sense, people don't care. It's going to have to be the Spirit of God that moves on them, and a lot of people just don't think that anybody really gives a shit about them. And you acting like a robot and giving them the truth and being very simple and straightforward with it, it's not touching their heart, right? Like throwing a textbook at somebody, everything in that textbook could be completely 100% accurate and put together in a very simple, logical, reasonable manner that even simple children can understand it. But there's no feeling to it. There's no, hey, you care. Somebody cares. But yeah, just some lessons that I'm learning myself and sharing them in a video like this. So thanks for watching and take care.